Today's meeting of the Environmental Advisory Board is called to order on January 15th. Welcome, everyone. The members of the Environmental Advisory Board were appointed by the City Council, and we serve voluntarily. The board's objective is to provide citizen insight to the City Council and staff on environmental activities within and affecting the City of Clearwater. Agendas of today's meeting are on the wall at the entrance to the chambers. Please turn off your cell phones and electronic devices. To ensure a complete record of the board's actions, we ask each individual wishing to speak clearly state your name. Will members of the board please introduce yourselves?
Ashley Pinley.
Mark Wright.
Jared Leone.
John Thomas.
Sarah Kessler, staff liaison.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from our last meeting last decade. Board members, are there any changes or corrections?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The minutes are approved. We'll move on to citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak to items not on the agenda? All right. We'll move on then to new business. Let's see. Discuss progress on limiting single-use plastics on special events, or at special events. Chris Cock, Special Events Senior Manager, and Sheridan Boyle.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for having me. Chris Cook with the...
Oh, sorry, Chris.
No
Sorry.
problem. With the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm the Senior Manager overseeing our athletic events as well as our special events. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here from you guys to let you know a little bit of what we're doing, and then also get your insight and guidance on how we can even further enhance what we're doing and what we're thinking in our plans as we oftentimes are looking years into the future on some of these large events. So these are the good conversations to have to prepare our partners and ourselves for what's around the corner. Just to kind of jump right into some of the things that we have started doing within I would say within the last year to 2 years on some of the events that are more of the annual events that city has different various involvements with. When the city's involved with having vendors at the events, that is a big opportunity for us to limit, instead of just looking at one particular person that has things on site. If we're able to create guidelines and rules and regulations for what people can bring in as far as being a vendor at an event, that really helps us at the very beginning with how we're collecting those things at the end. So Sheridan can probably speak a little bit more about where the genesis came from and how working with Ocean Allies and her and a few other people where those documents were created. But in our office working with Sheridan, we have kind of a list of guidelines that are now in all of our vendor agreements. So before we approve somebody to be a vendor at a special event to sell food or beverages at our event, or even merchandise or exhibitors or things like that, here's a few things that we have on that list specific to this conversation. There's no expanded polystyrene allowed. There are no plastic bags allowed. Plastic straws are prohibited. We speak to them about the proper recycling process, and just to elaborate on that a little bit more. So we've had recycling bins at events, for as long as it can go back. Where that can fail is people that either don't know or don't care or don't follow, and then all of a sudden we have areas that we've identified for recycling that are contaminated. So the key for that is education, awareness, and oversight. So we've actually started working with partners on some of our upcoming events, like Keep Pinellas Beautiful, where we can actually staff recycling areas, and then we can market that. We have to let people know where they are and how they can do their part. So we have video board announcements that we can do, and stage announcements from the stage if it's concerts, or even just simple signage if it's smaller events, saying here's where you can go to recycle, and then in those areas having a staff presence to make sure that they're not being contaminated. So that the proper recycling process is one. The disposable cutlery is another area, and Sheridan can probably talk a little bit about how there's providers out there that are helping us find where to get these materials, because a lot of times we hear from vendors, well, I don't know where I can get this stuff. Now we have an answer for those questions before they arrive. And then no balloons, that's something that seems cut and dry, but a lot of the people that want to set up and pass things out to kids or things at events, all of a sudden they show up and they have tanks and they're passing out balloons, and so by putting it out there ahead of time, it's not a surprise when we don't allow them to do that. The second part that I'll touch on is just the reduction in water bottles, and soda bottles are a huge item there. At all of the city events that were involved in the resale of any of those, we now allow people to bring water in. So you're allowed to bring in a gallon, 2 gallons, as much unopened sealed water as you can, where that wasn't something in the past we've allowed. And then we'll also allow people to bring in containers, empty containers, and then we provide water refill stations at all these events. So whether it's the ESPN softball tournaments over at Eddie Seymour or Wild Splash, right behind us in Coachman Park, we have stations where people can go and get refillable water. Some of our vendors or partners that are bottom line conscious, want to sell more water, but I think it's becoming such a broad conversation in today's culture that we really haven't had pushback when we're telling people this is something that we're mandating that they put in our water refill stations. Also, this is a simple one, but the handouts around, it's a little bit harder for us to patrol, but at least those who are partners of ours, we don't allow them to go put paper and things on people's car doors. If you've ever ran in the turkey trot, you go out to your car and it's like your windshield, you can't even see out of it because it's covered in papers and things like that. So at least we try to tell any people who are partners of ours that's not allowed, and we try to patrol that the best we can. I mentioned about the advertising and signage, just making people aware at our events is big. A couple of things that we're working on for the future. So just to give you a quick glimpse into our process for how people can have tournaments and special events in our city. So it starts with a request form. That request form gets reviewed by a committee. Once it's approved, the special event organizer or the athletic event organizer gets a series or list of people to contact for more information and to basically get clearance that they have to call the police department, they have to call the EMS department, just to make sure that there's contact between all the different departments in the organizer. Something we're working on is getting language from Sheridan. This is probably the first she's hearing of it, but getting information from there that we can also supply to every event person that is getting a permitted event in the city, just on some basic places they can go to find out more information on this. And then part of that process also is it is taken into account the location of events. So when it goes to that committee for approval, as you're well aware, I'm sure we get constant applications for events on Clearwater Beach, in Pier 60 Park, in areas that are not as easy to control, trash and plastics and recycling and things like that. And so that is one of the environmental concerns is one of the main reasons that we will look at an event and say whether or not we think it's good for the community or not good for our community. So just to bring you in a little bit about how those things are discussed and how we do look at all of those things before somebody's just handed a permit to do something. There's processes they go through to get approval for. Sheridan, is there anything you want to touch on or elaborate on?
Hi, Sheridan Boyle. No, I think Chris did an excellent job. I do have, different handouts that we'll make available online to vendors too that explains what ocean friendly means. It reflects what Chris just went over, the 6 things that we don't allow, but also we want to provide some resources for, okay, this is what we don't allow, so what do you replace it with? And thankfully, we have a lot of local partners that can help. Ocean Allies is a really great resource for plugging in. They work with a number of different distributors, and distributors want to sell you something. So if you say, I can't have this, well, what can you tell, what do you have that's actually good and meets these requirements? Ocean Allies can refer you to the right products while avoiding the greenwashing that usually happens with eco-friendly or sustainable products. Another benefit I wanted to mention about having Keep Pinellas Beautiful involved is, like Chris mentioned, a lot of times, actually I will say most times at events, our recycling is just contaminated. I'm sure you've been at an event where it's very busy and you can't even see, a couple of feet in front of you. So when you're walking by a container, you just think of it as a container, and you sometimes don't take the moment to read what it allows or what it doesn't. And that's generally what happens with recycling. So rather than twinning the bin is what it's called in solid waste, where you put a recycling bin next to a trash can everywhere. Rather than making it too convenient, what we're going to do is have signs that show people where a recycling center is, so that when they want to recycle something, they're actually intentionally bringing it to you. Keep Pinellas Beautiful is a great resource because they not only, I've trained them in what we do and don't accept and why, because they'll probably get some of those questions, but they're also great in talking about, in an engaging way, litter prevention and what ocean friendliness really even means. They even have a fun little small obstacle course for kids at events where they can get through different fake ocean debris, and at the end of it they have to figure out where to put their item. Is it recyclable, is it trash? And then at some events they're able to compost it too and have that option. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, and I'm excited to announce, is that this next Neighborhoods Day is going to be a low waste Neighborhoods Day. So we are making information available online to everyone that's hosting a Neighborhoods Day celebration that offers them the reasoning behind why do low waste. We didn't make it zero waste because we wanted not to intimidate people and allow them to know, sometimes we produce trash and not everything can be recycled or composted. So we went with low waste, but they would then take the pledge and we provide a guide, 10 steps to what a low waste Neighborhoods Day event looks like. And we plug them into different truly compostable products that you can break down in your backyard compost and that are available. We have a guide, here are the products that you can find at Walmart, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, Office Depot even, and Amazon, so that it's like stores that they can find, that they don't have to order in bulk from a distributor and get, 5,000. And another great component of that event is that we've partnered with the Pinellas Community Composting Alliance. So any neighborhood celebration that says, yeah, we want to be low waste, they will get a composting service, as well as, I believe, $50 extra in their celebration grants, so that they can apply it to either using, more reusable or compostable goods or for food or things like that. Are there any questions?
I actually have a question. You guys don't mind if I go first?
Yeah.
Just
Please.
real quick, having filled out several of these special event forms, because I work with disc golf. I'm sure you guys have seen Tampa Bay Disc Sports Club here and there. And one of the things I've always wanted is because it sounds like you guys have the city special events covered pretty well, but some of these smaller events like ours, and I'm sure softball clubs and all these other clubs, I'd like to see more ability to get bins delivered to the events for recycling. I understand the bins probably being there all the time would be too contaminated, but I think if you had a place where I could check to have a bin provided to the event, where you could have a pickup for that one day, that would be really nice. And that's about all I have to add. Can that happen? Would be the question.
Yeah, so I mentioned that the checklist that we have for events, I think in some cases, and this is something we'll definitely take a look at, so I appreciate you bringing it up. In some cases, there are things like at disc golf courses or at other city-owned properties that don't necessarily qualify for a special event permit. But perhaps there is a way for us to, because with the special event permit, you go through the checklist process where you would have to contact solid waste and they would, recommend things and drop those things off. If it's not to that level of 150 people to where you get a special event thing, doesn't necessarily mean it shouldn't have recycling bins. So,
Right, and that's what I'm getting at.
coming up with a process or a request form or something like that people can turn into us to let us know. So I think we can work with our solid waste department and get their insight on it as well about the best way for even smaller events to apply to get those things.
Yeah, because I always see all the trash cans getting filled up with the sodas that we provide and the bottled water especially. You have a whole cooler full. And even with 50 people, an event that's one day, it stacks up quick. And it would be nice to see a separate bin. And I don't think it's a little, it's oftentimes, you're right, it's the events that are 150 people and greater are the ones that get the attention on this, but there's a lot of small events where that would be really handy.
No, that's good, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, I'm done.
If I wanted to get information on the types of products that are available, you mentioned Ocean Allies, would that list of materials and where we could get those be available on their website, or do you have information on that you could share?
Yeah, so I think they don't have a specific, like, here's where you can go to get all of these things. They work heavily with Auburn Supply, and Auburn, if you go to their website, they have a tab that's like, here are all of our ocean-friendly items, and they're in the hundreds. I think the issue is, and it's not necessarily an issue, it's a good thing, it's so vast, and there are a number of products, whether you're a salon, or you're a cafe, or a restaurant, or an event, a company. There's a lot that you can choose from, and there's a lot that's being made now with better material. So either using Ocean Allies or probably Auburn as a reference is a good place to start. But also I'm happy to answer any questions. Sometimes it's really hard with the level of greenwashing that's out there. I know someone I talked to looked up the kind of eco-friendly balloons, and they found biodegradable balloons. They were just green latex balloons. So that's why I always caution anyone, if it's not like BPI certified, compostable, or paper without a liner of plastic, to do your research.
Yeah, there's some neat new things out there. I'll share one. I was at the Outback Bowl, and we saw all these stars going up, and we said, look at the size of these balloons. Well, one of them came down by us. It wasn't a balloon. It was foam that just broke apart, and it was like bubbles. But they were, up 500 feet in the air, and,
I've not seen that.
and that was,
It's even a better replacement for the paper lanterns, too.
yeah,
That I see happening.
it just, disintegrated. That was pretty neat.
That is interesting.
But everybody thought it was balloons. That's what until somebody grabbed one. Disappeared.
Any other questions?
No questions, but that's helpful to me. I will be running a number of events at the Florida Botanical Gardens over this next year for our 20th anniversary. And
Oh yeah, they'd be happy to help,
oh
too.
yes,
They, sometimes you might have to get them to stop talking about the different items, but either Jana Wiggins or Sherry Hellman, they both are kind of
Yeah.
chomping at the bit to talk about the products.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, and as I had mentioned on our events where we bring in the vendors, we do supply that links and things that they can go to find where those products are. So we're not just saying you can't use this, we're saying here's where you can go to use something that is better.
Thank you, Chris and Sheridan. I think this is a watershed moment, pun intended, for the city. I'm curious, I do have a few questions. I hope you guys can help me with the answers. The events that have been ocean-friendly or have reduced or hit a number of, maybe not all 6 of the targets, but a handful of them, have we had any of those events yet in the city? And when, and which ones are they? Or,
I know the Clearwater Beach food.
oh, that's a good one.
Taste Fest, sorry. I just called it Food Fight. Taste Fest, that would be a good event.
Yeah, so that was, the chamber partnered with Ocean Allies, and it was incredible. There was a certified zero waste event by Suncoast Compost, and they diverted 96% of their waste away from the waste to energy facility in landfill. A lot of that was composted because Suncoast Compost was hired for their services. So they had an educator at every booth, and you had an option between garbage, recycling, or compostable. And so they would guide people who were wanting to dispose of something. But Suncoast Compost even worked with the vendors prior to make sure that the items that they were going to be giving out was something that they could process.
So,
And I know the Clearwater Beach Chalk Art Festival
okay.
had, I don't know if they were quite to that level this year with it, but they certainly took a lot of the steps. The Sugar Sand Festival took steps. I think what we're seeing with a lot of them is they don't want to overcommit and then find out and fail and promote they're going to do something and then not be totally ready. So we've had a lot in the last year that have taken steps that are finding their footing and are taking even more steps. The Sugar Sand, for instance, is an event that I know Sheridan's met with them. We've met with them And that is one of their main topics of conversation, is how they can keep that momentum for that going. Because quite frankly, it's great for the environment, but it's also a good promotional tool for them to be talking to people about as well.
Certainly.
Clearwater Jazz Holiday and Coachman Park event took some big steps last year, are looking to take even more. So it is encouraging, and not just because she's standing here, but it is, with the city making the commitment with her position, it's really kind of motivated all of our departments to make sure that we're in lockstep with what the city wants us to be doing.
So it sounds like some actual certified or continuing the gradual transition this year. Maybe some other signature events will get that.
Yeah, our Sea Blues Festival,
Okay.
we're all but saying we're going to be an ocean-friendly event just because it is the first year we're doing it with that one. But we have Keep Pinellas Beautiful coming out, all these things that we kind of laid out, we're doing with the vendors and the recycling at that event, and that's the last weekend in February. So we're excited about that one coming up.
Yeah, I think that's a good opportunity to showcase a lot of the transition and the change. I'm curious though about the recycling and the recycling center. Do we know how that would look? Is it just a bunch of recycling bins and we single stream them, or is each recycling bin going to be devoted to a different item so people can kind of categorize what is accepted?
So it's going to be single stream because the truck that processes it is going to have single stream in it. So it wouldn't necessarily make sense to separate by item, especially since people are not going to be doing that at home. But what we are going to have is we are going to have the containers, but they're going to be positions, and we'll figure out how to organize it. But where Keep Pinellas, Beautiful has their tent and their staff around it, and it's presented in an engaging way. So it's still not just like a mindless, even though you sought out the center, it's not like a mindless throwaway.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talk about a lot with trash and recycling is contamination, and I wonder because of our push for single stream, which is to make it easier for the user, it makes it so much more difficult down the line for those products to
It can
be
make it more
recycled, so-
difficult. I will say though, it makes it more accessible and more convenient for a number of people and businesses, and the amount of infrastructure, not only we, but every other city really in the United States, most cities, have devoted to the single stream process, whether it's our trucks or our bins, or it's not likely to go back to a...
No, I don't suggest that it should. I just think that the ease of it has made it more difficult because people see that as just another trash bin.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, that's why that's why the education component is there. But that's why, again, I suggest, it's all going into the same place, but if people can get into the mind, like, what is it, the 5 items or whatever, and just say there's 5 bins, and you have to figure out which one go where or whatever. And yeah, you're going to put them all in the same place eventually, but if you can just, I guess, we get it more.
Start to categorize in your mind.
Yeah, that this is accepted, this isn't,
Yeah.
and whether they're all being collected or not, it's, when you get home, you're gonna put it all in the same place, but then you'll maybe know, oh yeah, that's a pizza box, I shouldn't be doing that, so.
I will mention that to Keep Pinellas Beautiful, and I am interested. They've mentioned the obstacle course that they've had,
Yeah.
and so that might help too with, where do I put it, and
Yeah.
really thinking what.
Yeah, not necessarily to get rid of single stream, but just to kind of compartmentalize what the accepted, recycling products are. And then my other question was about the cutlery and the other items. Some of this stuff's made from wood. Trees aren't cut down to.
No, most of it is made from either bamboo or actually palm leaves that have fallen. They're not palms that are cut. They're palm leaves that have just fallen, and then they can, they're pretty durable, and they can make them into the utensils.
And they're easily replenishable as well.
Yeah, they're not, when you buy the reusable utensils that are like bamboo, they're pretty sturdy and thick. These are more ones that you break apart from one another, and they're very thin paper. It's enough to get the job done, but not enough that's going to serve you, 10 times over.
Okay. And you had mentioned, Chris, plastics were harder to control at events on the beach. Is that because plastics are still being allowed, or is there a no plastic bottle at all? You mentioned having to have water filling stations, but are sodas still being sold, or is that something that's going to be gradually phased out, or is that no longer?
I don't know if I can speak to the phasing out part of that, but I can tell you from a controlling it perspective, it is offering the water stations just allows in people's mind if I can go get it here for free, then I might buy less, so we're trying to control it that way. And then I think with some of the beach events that we do, we know that just because something's in Pier 60 Park, somebody may be there and then taking whatever they're getting in that park out onto the beach. So we're just trying to be mindful to know that when I say harder to control, for us, it's they may not dispose of what they buy at the event in the location they bought it, like they would at Coachman Park or another.
The
place.
boundaries are a little less,
They could
yeah.
take it out onto the beach, and so we just try to be a little more sensitive on the product offerings we allow on the beach.
Okay, very well. And then the only other question I think is, with the resources for Neighborhoods Day, is there a limited number to the grants for or is it going to be met, like if all 20-something neighborhoods sought out these grants, would they be available for all neighborhoods?
Yeah, I'm not familiar if there is a limit. I have not heard of one, but there will be a link on the neighborhood services page, I think within the end of this week, by the end of this week, that kind of spells out everything. I've overlooked it and I have not seen a limit, but I can ask Juliana Green. And I think we have like 34, last year had 34 neighborhood groups.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
That's great.
and probably only growing this year. But we're excited. I think this is one of the kind of first opportunities some of these groups, who might not be going to certain events or plugged into certain organizations have for what low waste is.
Yeah, I think that's a great educational opportunity for the residents. So thank you again for joining us. I don't have any other questions if anyone else has anything else to.
I would just like to know how people react to when you ask them to put their things in 3 different containers for the composting and the plastic and the.
I think, so with compost, a lot of people have no idea what it is, and they think it's like an incredibly messy and smelly process, which it's not, and it's really awesome when you actually know the process and how it works and how effective it can be, and that it's not smelly. I can say with recycling, though, it's just every single time people are always amazed at what is not actually recyclable. And so when you talk to them about why, that's where the aha awakening kind of moment goes. Because very frequently we're just used to throwing things away, but we don't realize that there's not really an away when it comes to our waste.
You put like a hole in the recycling for just plastic bottles, so people know that this is just for a certain product.
I think at certain locations we've been considering that when it is, they'll only have the certain containers, because that certainly limits what they're able to put in there, and they're able to identify it more. But then there are other events where they'll be having, not just containers, but maybe paper items and other things. But that does help, people are able to identify it based on that circle. I've seen them on the river walk in Tampa. They have those containers.
Yeah, I think it's helpful so we know where to put it.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the Keep Pinellas Beautiful. At one time, she was saying that they give people like a paper bag when they come into an event and say, "Can you, if you will, as a volunteer, can you put all your waste in here and then bring it to a certain area?" And I always thought that was nice. That when we were doing the no straws, it got people talking about all of a sudden recognizing what was going on, but everything was a volunteer. You didn't have to do it, and it seemed like people wanted to do more if they knew they didn't have to or something.
I haven't heard of that paper bag idea, but that is interesting, and I'll have to talk to Keep Pinellas Beautiful more about how that works for them.
Yeah, they talked to us at one time, and I thought that was just brilliant. Because if you had children, that would be something for the kids to do too. Is get all the plastic bottles into one container.
Do we have any comments from the audience? All right. Hearing none, thank you very much. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, old business. All right. We'll move on to our next item, director's report.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, do you have some?
Yeah, a
Oh,
couple
sorry.
of things that
Yes,
I
sir.
just was concerned on some feedback. Cooper's Bayou, is that still ongoing? And I know last time you had reported that, an RFP was going out for some of the design, and has a specific solution been identified there at this time?
So I don't remember
the exact update that I gave you guys. So DOT has stepped up and is providing funding for probably about 50% design plans and permitting for all of the projects. So in the design part of it, we will figure out exactly what the width of the channel at along the Courtney Campbell will be. We haven't figured that out. We're guessing around 400 feet, but it'll be figured out in the design exactly how wide that'll be. And so they will do, it'll be about 50% design plans, and then we'll get to the permitting stage with the agencies, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Water Management District, DEP, NOAA, National Marine Fisheries will be involved, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, like it'll be the entire gamut of agencies, like
sure.
more acronyms than you can shake a stick at. So they're going to work on that, and then after everything's permitted, we will go back and modify the permit to include the recreation elements that we want in it. So it'll include the trails, some observation towers, the platforms, the kayak launch, and so all of that will be part of the project. But DOT is not going to pay for that part, so we have to go back after the fact and modify the permit to include what we want for recreation elements. So we are not working on an RFP for it right now because DOT is doing their business. So it's not in our best interest to do anything yet. We just want to wait until we get the plans, and then once we have the plans, we will release that for an RFP and say, we need the rest of this designed and ready for construction. We need to bring it up to construction plans. And so we'll wait until those DOT plans are done. Initial estimates say probably midsummer. They could be done as early as that. You're never really sure with permitting agencies, once you get the Corps involved and National Marine Fisheries, like it can take a while. We're hoping to apply for a few big grants that are due in the fall. And so by that time, we'll have enough information to be able to apply for those grants. We'll have enough design information and things like that. So that's, all of those things are still pending, but they're on the board. We're just not quite ready for those yet.
When you outlined the recreational aspects, you didn't include the bridge across the, because that, to me, be so beneficial to the public access for that property, rather than to have to come in through the new educational facility.
Absolutely, and I think, I mean, everybody that sees the bridge is interested in it, but at this point, we have not figured out what the security situation is. It would probably, we'd need somebody there, most likely 24/7 if we had that bridge there. And so those are discussions we still need to work out. Another issue is the boating rights of the property owners that are south of that. And so given how shallow the water is right there, I'm not sure what their voting rights are. But it could be something that we can't put a bridge there because, we can't put a span high enough to get a boat under it. Like we could, a kayak could fit under there, but, it's like if they have even a little, Hobie Cat sailboat, we couldn't build anything high enough for that. So that's another thing we need to look at is the voting rights of that. So it's still on the table. I don't know if that's something that will be a phase 1 or maybe a phase 2 part of it.
There's something similar to that I've seen down in Bradenton at the Robinson Preserve. They have a long bridge that goes from 64 that connects to the other part of the park.
Okay. I'll have to go down there and see it.
Yeah. I haven't been on it. I've seen it as I've gone by and done some work along it.
All right. I will check that out to see if that.
Probably a Google Earth
what that
search first.
bridge is. Yeah.
The other, at our your presentation to the city council, you made some recommendations about the potential for us seeing some of the major projects at a certain stage in the design. Have we received any feedback from the council or city staff, whether, that might be a possibility?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up at the board members to be heard, but I guess we
Okay.
can.
Yeah, we can address it now. Nothing official has been sent back. The city manager really wanted to wait until we had a new council in place before making decisions and changes like that. But I think, so that'll happen in March. And so I think maybe April, like Sheridan and Roger and I can talk about some, like kind of what a program would be and can present that information to you in April. Kind of,
Great. All right.
kind of
So
what
it's
it
being
would look like.
evaluated and under consideration?
Yeah, yep.
All right. And one other, we had a presentation some time ago about the stormwater and wetlands creation project out behind the Long Center. I don't know if that's properly characterized as them. But I went out and visited that, and it looks fabulous from a wetlands standpoint. They did a wonderful job. The only recommendation I would have is there's a lot of turtles in there. And you go across the bridge that's in there, you can see them swimming around. And turtles love places to bask. And wetlands that I've created in my career, I always like to put stones or some areas that the turtles can crawl up out and bask in the sun, not on the edge of the pond, because the edge of the wetland or the pond is, they're more vulnerable there, but they like the things in the middle of the wetland system. So I didn't know if that's something that, I should contact someone and share some of those thoughts, or if that's something that you can pass along for us.
I can pass that on. I can see what,
I was called a reptile basking habitat.
I'll label it as that, reptile basking habitat.
Well, that's a good thought, I have to say. Really, I go by there all the time. I hate the
Yeah,
bridge
but-
because I thought it was a waste of money, but I do like your idea. Maybe we replace the bridge with
No,
stones.
the bridge is great for observation. There's all kinds of ducks, and, I'm sure there'll be
6
some
inches of
fish
water.
in there, and the turtles. And, I spent some time up there. So, thank you.
All right. We'll move on then. Director report?
So last week, I went to the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's Leadership Resiliency Summit. I don't know if you guys saw the news about it, but all three mayors were there. They made a great discussion. It was a really, really good summit. We had many elected officials there, decision makers, the people who do the work, and some industry leaders. So it made for great across the board information discussion. Our mayor was the talk of the summit with his pizza box thing. He asked everyone who recycles pizza boxes, and a number of people raised their hands, and he said, "Don't do it." And so that definitely stuck with everyone, that nobody will be putting pizza boxes in the recycling bins any longer. So that was very successful little recycling training there. The summit really put everyone on the same page with a number of resiliency issues. I actually sat next to the mayor of St. Pete Beach at one of our roundtable discussions, and they are doing installation of some cool pavement, and it's a sealant that they're putting on Corey Avenue, and they'll be putting it in a couple other places, but they're first going to do Corey Avenue. So I'm going to kind of pay attention to that project. They're using it for a heat island effect, so when they have their festivals and things like that at Corey Avenue, the pavement will just hold less heat and it will just be cooler. I think the number he told me was right around like 85 degrees is what the pavement would be. So I don't know if that's industry standard or what it is, but that sounded really interesting. I talked to our parking manager, and he is interested in it, and so we'll see kind of what comes out of their process down in St. Pete Beach, and that might be something that we can try out on one of our beach parking lots, and then maybe extend that if it works out. So
Where'd you say that was? Corey Avenue?
Corey Avenue on St. Pete Beach. Yeah, they have great little festivals down there. You should check them out. And so then on the second day, we had the second half of the second day, there was a number of roundtable discussions, and each, well, there was probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 different topics, and each table had a different topic. And so it was like infrastructure, transportation, water, coastlines. And so we just sort of talked about what the problems were in each area, and then what 3 things a local government could do to solve, to work on those problems, and then what 3 things regionally we could do to address some of those problems. And it was neat because the answers went up on a wall, and then we just used stickers to put kind of our favorite answers on things. And so, just because you weren't at a transportation table didn't mean you couldn't vote for what the transportation people selected. So I would just be on the lookout for what comes out of that. They're going to put all their little dotted study that we did, dotted discussion groups. They're going to make a report out of it, and so distribute it to the public so we can learn a little bit more about kind of where we want to focus, where we want to kind of move towards regionally. So that was. It was
Can
really
you
helpful.
can you proliferate that to us when that is available?
Absolutely, yep, absolutely. I don't think it'll be until probably mid-February at least, but as soon as I get it, I'll pass it on, for sure. Yep. Okay, so then, other than the project review stuff that I talked about, is there anything else that you are interested in discussing at future meeting?
I always have something.
I know.
And I was telling these guys before we started this meeting today about how I had gone for a walk around my neighborhood and noticed the vast amount of trash around the perimeter fence of the elementary school there. I think it's Oak Hill Elementary there. That's off of Odin, Odin and Highland there. I'm trying to remember it. Sandhill? I don't know why I'm blanking on it right now. I thought I'd have no trouble remembering it. But besides the point, it's not only this elementary school, but several other schools that have a perimeter fence. Kids waiting for their ride, they're getting the bus, they're just walking around during the school, and the wind maybe catches on the fence. And it got me thinking, what can we do to help clean up this trash? So I started making some phone calls. And I called the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, and I kind of talked to them about whether or not they'd be interested in a trash cleanup program where we had maybe a sponsor or a chaperone that would have a group clean up trash, sign up a sheet, turn in the sheet, and use that as a way to get tickets into the aquarium. And they were certainly interested in it. And I thought before I called everybody, I'd kind of bring this up because it would take somebody like maybe Sharon to coordinate all this. Sorry to put that on you. But or some of the other volunteer coordinators could probably help this. And I just wanted to know if it was even a possibility to start a program like this where you could get a lot of the city subsidized places in. You've got Ruth Eckerd Hall, which I'm certain if I called them, I could get somebody on board. There's Spectrum Fields. I guarantee you they would let people go to spring training events based on this trash cleanup. There's the Capitol Theater. And each venue would be geared towards, maybe a baseball team would be more interested in going to Spectrum Fields. Maybe a drama club would be more interested in going to Capitol Theater, and so on down the line. Younger kids would probably like the Marine Aquarium. So before I call all these people and raise a fuss and all that, I just wanted to make sure that it's something that I could get the sustainability coordinator or maybe Heather Parsons on board to manage this, or if it's even something that is manageable, and how often I could do it. I talked to the lady at Marine Aquarium, and we thought twice a year would be a good thing, and have open dates. Or, of course, there would be blackout dates for free tickets. But is that something that we could possibly do? Do you see that as something we could discuss in the next meeting?
So I don't think it needs to be discussed because I think it can be moved forward. Like, I don't think this is a discussion item. So we have our volunteer coordinator, Felicia, she spoke, last year, when
Yeah,
was it,
like-
April, maybe?
yeah.
I can't remember. But this is something that she could easily, like, talk to you, get plugged in and figure this out. Like, this is nothing that we need a presentation on, like, this is
Okay,
something we
great.
can just move forward with. So I will email you Felicia's information, and then you can let her know what information you've gathered, and she can move forward with that information and set something up.
All right, well, great, then I'll start making more phone calls.
And report back to us on
Yeah,
how that
absolutely, I would like to
progresses.
report back on my progress on that.
I don't know if Felicia's with the city anymore, so that position is open.
So do you want to be the city's volunteer coordinator? Because it sounds
I will say, real quickly, the city is considering a more extensive partnership with Keep Pinellas Beautiful, and they can absolutely organize those events, and they have extensive volunteers already to begin with. But the component that is missing is that incentive, which I really like the idea. So if Keep Pinellas Beautiful can kind of do the organization and have some of their staff or interns show up for the cleanup
Okay.
event, we can connect them with the interested
Yeah, I've certainly talked to those people over there before, and they seem very receptive on the programs like that, so I would absolutely love to do that.
Great.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm always interested in solar, so I'll put my very question.
I'd like to see if, there we can do a pilot project in one of those parking lots on the beach.
So, excuse me, our parking manager is a little overwhelmed right now. Like, I don't know if you've seen him on the news, but he's putting in new pay stations, and there's a lot going on in the parking world. But he is interested in that, and so he just needs to get a little bit off his plate before he starts looking at some of those solar options and things like that. So, hold on.
Okay.
I love the
Long
idea.
range
He's on board, just
That's the greatest idea I've seen.
a little
come across here.
overwhelmed right now. So.
Yeah.
Well, another topic that came up, it was a year ago, was the Red Tide Forum that was held. And there were a lot of, the research scientists and government officials who spoke about, one, the cleanup that had been done, but also, where the research is heading. And, I also got a little note from Charlie Crist to my home telling us that one of the major things, on maybe some of the others
Yeah,
here
yeah.
received it as well, that it's one of the major items on his agenda as well. And, it'd be helpful to understand if there's something that we can do, as a city. What should, is it nutrients? A lot of what I heard at that research forum, was triggered by the micronutrients, out in the central Gulf with iron oxides that are coming from the Sahara Desert. So that triggered the bloom, but coming closer to the shores, it's nutrients. And are there more, programs or things that we can be, trying to institute to
So one thing about
turn the tide,
Cooper's Point
keep it
project-
further south?
Yeah, one of the things about the Cooper's Point project is, part of it is to dredge Cooper's Bayou and the circulation aspect of it. There is a colony, not sure what you call it, of pyridinium, which is a red tide that is dormant very close to that. And so with that circulation, it will certainly help the red tide in the upper Tampa Bay area. And so that's something, like when we apply for funding for this project, that's certainly something that's going to be on that application, saying that this is going to improve water quality in Old Tampa Bay. And so that's certainly going to help that. Also, I'm going to a meeting which is going to be rescheduled, so I don't know when it is, but it's going to talk about water quality in Old Tampa Bay. And so it's Oldsmar, Tampa, Clearwater, Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, and we're going to talk about some other things, like things that we're currently doing, things that we can do to improve Old Tampa Bay. And so that doesn't really help the sands off the coast of Africa part of it.
No.
But, you know, that's, like, the Old Tampa Bay is the easy stuff for us to impact. And so looking at what we can continue to do as far as runoff and different circulation things in Old Tampa Bay, we are meeting about that and hopefully going to come up with some additional things that we can do.
Would a presentation to us from the Tampa Bay Estuary Program potentially be something that we could
I don't
arrange?
know, but I could ask about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Especially, I had seen some red tide bloom south of us already,
Right.
so.
Yeah, we were fortunate
Yeah,
this season.
yeah. All right. Anything else, John?
No, that's all I had.
Ashley? No?
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Counselor,
Thank you very much. So with that, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Oh, I can't wait to get you guys on progress on the next meeting.